So I'm Albert McLeod. I'm director of the Two-Spirit People of Manitoba. We've been active, not just regionally, but we've been active nationally as well since 1986 in Manitoba. And we do education, outreach, and advocacy with the powers that be around Two-Spirit LGBTQ plus issues. And we have a group of elders here who are Two-Spirit guiding our work that began in 1986 and are now elders. We have the first Two-Spirit Michif local that was just launched in 2019 with the support of the Manitoba Métis Federation. As well, we just launched in 2018 the National Two-Spirit Network, Two-Spirits in Motion Society. So in some ways we're seeing, some movement around human rights issues around Indigenous people and Two-Spirit people. I originally come from northern Manitoba, a family of Cree and Scottish settlers who worked in the Hudson Bay Company fur trade since the mid-1850s. And so my identity is very blended in terms of our colonial past from sort of the settler Scottish worldview, as well as the Cree land-based work that they were doing in the fur trade. And I've been living in Winnipeg for the last 40 years, primarily learning about Ojibwe values and beliefs, language, philosophy, and healing knowledge.
During the gathering, we invited people to talk about care, and we had many conversations about how care is located in Indigenous art practices for many people, and also it's many intersection of Indigenous knowledge and also cultural methodologies and all of this. So I also know that you have an art practice. If you can talk a bit how you practice care, like for yourself, but in your community also, and how we practice care in general as Indigenous people in different ways.
What I've been doing most lately is sort of exploring the theme of land-based engagement, whether you're in an urban setting, a rural one, or on reserve, or remote, or northern. And it's all about worldview and our relationship with the land. And because I'm urban centric, but even within that context, in terms of care and connecting to the natural world, for example, plants, animals as either, traditional food or as sort of, learning totems. The eagle is very prominent in the prairies as one of our, spiritual animals. And then the location of water sources, whether it's a river or a lake, and sort of reframing it so it means to me, more to me from more of my intellectual, philosophy of life, but also my Indigenous experience and my lineage with my family. So even though I'm urban, I sort of tease out what is really land-based within my environment. And I know urban settings can be very alienating for Indigenous people in that they're very literal and kind of unwelcoming generally. But so I work with youth and other land-based educators about urban landscapes, about reclaiming the urban landscapes and reframing it so it has more meaning. I know, like in Winnipeg, there's a more introduction and recognition of traditional healing plants, and different organizations are now growing them for their participants. So there's that whole piece of sort of laying seeds into the soil, caring for the plants and harvesting them in the fall, whether it's sweetgrass or sage, and even tobacco. I know in Regina and in Toronto and in Winnipeg, people are collecting tobacco seeds and beginning to grow tobacco for offerings and pipes and that kind of thing. So we also have an artist here, Casey Adams, who is doing traditional pottery style. So she's reclaiming actually the mud from Winnipeg has a lot of mud. Manitoba has a lot of mud. So she's gone through that process of just, learning that history of traditional pottery making and firing outside, and just understanding, what this, the clay it consists of, and how you can use it in an art form. So it's very that tangible expression of land-based experience in an urban environment. You can do it in an urban environment. And really that's the message to the youth is, it's kind of that two-edged seeing philosophy. Yes, we live in a Western urban, media-centric, sort of digital-centric society. But within that, it's really a skill and a gift to begin to tease out those cultural and spiritual aspects of whatever environment we exist in. Just with the, onset of the COVID pandemic, the first week, a lot of my friends on Facebook were prescribing medicinal teas like, muskeg tea and cedar tea, and then smudge your room, smudge your house. And I thought that was really interesting that today for our generation of youth, that's the go-to, right? Mm-hmm. It is that foundational knowledge that really is important for people to share with each other. And even this kind of the first outbreak in a nearby reserve, one of the community members sent cedar by airplane to the community because it doesn't grow around that community. So there's these things that people are doing and can do. And the other phenomenal thing that happened is the social distance powwow that, it began in March, and now I think it has over 203,000 members from around the world, primarily from Canada and the US. And it's so unique in that people are drumming and singing every day, dancing, showing their art, selling their art, sharing their culture. And, 200,000 Indigenous people in North America would never have met in other circumstances to share their culture. So this is sort of a unique situation where we are learning at such an accelerated rate about people all over North America and their culture and spirituality. And like every day I go on Facebook and someone is singing, whether it's a group of singers around a big drum or a hand drum, or someone's dancing, right? And I really, when you step back and look at that, that is our understanding of wellness, right? Mm-hmm. Is to use what we were given, that knowledge that the elders have given us is we have shakers, we have drums, we have plant medicines, we dance as a form of healing and self-care. And so I think it's not by accident that this has been a response to the reality of the COVID pandemic. And I suspect this probably happened in the past as well when communities were faced with such urgent situations. Mm-hmm. And I also see that, there's the resurgence of beadwork as an art medium, which is really reclaiming, that sort of space of creativity by just using your hands, right? And the amount of medallions that are being made, the amount of earrings and jewelry, it's astounding. And then the ribbon skirt making, right? Mm-hmm. So these are sort of phenomenon that talks about the resurgence.
I went on their website, Two-Spirit People of Manitoba, and then I was reading a couple of things that you doing and organizing, and I read this sentence that was beautiful, like that gathering is a creative space where artists, activists, and Two-Spirit elders and leaders meet to share their knowledge, gift, and skills. And I was wondering if we can talk a bit more about the importance of gatherings for LGBTQ+ and Two-Spirit people in general. You already touched on this.
Well, we began this process, as I said, and a pandemic or illness is kind of the catalyst for some kind of community response. So back in 1988, that was our first international Two-Spirit gathering in Minneapolis. And it was about the time when, a lot of gay Indigenous men were diagnosed with AIDS or dying of AIDS. So we were brought together to strategy. Where were we moving from this, right? How are we dealing with the reality of the HIV pandemic? And so that gathering didn't stop. It continued for the last 32 years, since 1988. So it was a form of, you know, how we talk about truth and reconciliation and the 94 calls for action. We began that process earlier, right? In 1988, we were reconciling our history. We were decolonizing by traveling over the North American continent, meeting each other, right? Learning about language, learning about ceremony, learning about, you know, traditional landscapes, learning about traditional foods. And so, you know, we began this idea of reconciliation and healing early on. And continue to do that today. This year we had to cancel the Two-Spirit Gathering, which is a, you know, in-person event of about 100 people from across North America. So it went online, and it was a digital gathering. Now, hopefully we can continue the momentum next year and actually have an in-person gathering. But what has also come from that is participation in healing ceremonies, whether it's sweat lodge, pipe ceremonies, and sundance. So there's now a movement to begin our own Two-Spirit Sundance in the West as part of that sort of healing journey that we're all on. Because in truth, we can only do it for ourselves. You know, as Two-Spirit people, we know our communities, we know our experience. When we look at ceremonies like that, there's a way that we need to do it for ourselves. So, so what we've done is really create 4 days out of the, you know, 365 that would be a safe space, right? Where we could be ourselves, where we didn't have to be ourselves. And, you know, youth are coming to our events now because youth in these days, they're coming out, you know, when they're 10 and 12. You know, they want to be their authentic selves, right? And they want to see role models, and they want to learn about Two-Spirit identity and culture. So we're seeing that more and more in our gatherings, is that, you know, organizations are bringing youth, or parents are bringing youth. And really, you know, that's, you know, that was our vision, that was our dream, that people don't have to hide their identities.
I read that I think it was beautiful. It's on the website too. The quote, "Artists will set us free." I don't know if you have some reflection about how artists are really important in our communities and how their work can change some people's lives.
Yeah, that quote is attributed to Louis Riel, in that it was kind of a prediction of the future, even though he was criminalized and eventually executed by the state. It was that sort of prophecy of that you cannot suppress, you know, a sort of a very ancient culture that has its traditions and aesthetics about art, right? Because art is mixed with spirituality, art is mixed with healing, art is mixed with intergenerational survival, art is mixed with fertility of the land, the fertility of plants, the fertility of animals and humans, right? That energy goes on despite politics, despite oppression. And so it was a prophecy in a way from him about 100 years from, you know, their oppression, that it would be the artist that would articulate this journey of, you know, liberation, this journey of decolonization and reclamation. And actually in Winnipeg, I live probably about 800 feet from where Louis Riel had his land on the Red River. It's called Saint Vital, Old Saint Vital. And just now, you know, we have the launch of the Inuit Art Center here at the Winnipeg Art Gallery. And then we have Indigenous staff working there as well. They gave us a tour a few weeks ago, and now they just gave it its name. So I think, you know, whether it's film, poetry, and we have artists now like, who wrote Johnny Appleseed, leaders, right, and poets and videographers and photographers who are really contributing, you know, in a massive way to this idea of what it means to be Indigenous in 2020. And, you know, just the knowledge and ingenuity to the sort of the stage. I happened to be at the National Arts Center for the play, the sort of, I can't remember the full name of the play, The Forgotten or Accidental Women. And Kalampa Bob was in that performance. And I did an online Zoom with her to talk about Indigenous theater artists, right? And because of COVID, a lot of people lost their gigs, you know.
Yeah.
And so, you know, how artists were faring. But, you know, she's a long time theatrical and artist in photography. It's great to hear those perspectives and how things have changed. And so, yeah, so there's lots happening. And right now, we have Tasha Spillett just published her second graphic novel about Indigenous life in the city. And so it's using all of those elements, you know, whether it's a film or a graphic novel or a book, right? Or even a meme. I make memes sometimes.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I think memes are a great way to communicate these days.
So to me, I think it is, you know, this idea of reclaiming a land-based experience, no matter where you live, and understanding that that's an important part of our worldview, our you know, source of spiritual energy. And even, you know, in the most alienating city, you know, you got to search it out. And I believe you'll find it, you know, and I think that's what art can lead us to that path, is even in the most foreign, alienating, oppressive environments, what can we find that is land-based, that is meaningful to us, right? Like in Toronto, they have raccoons, right?
Yeah.
Socialized to downtown. So, yeah. I hope you had a successful gathering online, and we look forward to next year.